Okay, that was really exciting. Thank you so much, Sanjeesh, for that. I really have come away with a couple of things I'm taking back to my school. As has been said, I am Andy Howard. I'm the principal of Sandymoor School, and we're really doing things very differently for some very important reasons. What I want to do in this short presentation is just tell you a little bit about our background and what we're doing differently. We started off from looking at things like Google. In fact, we very nearly went entirely Google, but then pulled back, and we are now fully an Office 365 based school, a real true ecosystem, working very closely with Microsoft. Who we are is very important because, as has already been said, we're all about communication. Schools are all about the business of actually talking, communicating, getting to know the people, being part of a family. We have got the privilege of being a very nice, very swanky brand new building. It's been open since August, so we've only been in it a few months. Prior to that, we spent 2 years in temporary buildings about half a mile away from this site because we are one of those exciting things. We are a free school. Now, I've given talks where I've had hisses and boos at that point, and I've just gone on to say, well, rather than tar us all with the same brush, come and listen to us, come and talk to us. Sandymoor School was set up 3 years ago by 5 local parents. We have literally got 5 local parents, ordinary people, as our founders. A traveling salesman selling locks to local hotels. This hotel itself probably is one of his customers. An architect, a project manager for Vodafone, just ordinary people. They still live in a community, a suburb of Runcorn. If you don't know Runcorn, it's an exciting place. I've never heard of it until I applied for the job. It sits somewhere vaguely between Liverpool and Manchester. On a map, it should have the phrase, "Here be dragons," because it's a very exciting place. Runcorn is a new town, exactly the same as Milton Keynes, founded after the war. And Runcorn ended up being a place that ended up housing all the people from bombed-out estates in Liverpool. If any of you have ever visited the Barbican, or been to any art or concerts or stuff down the Barbican, you actually are going to a mirror image of what the centre of Runcorn was built as. The problem with Runcorn is it's now had to be demolished because it was a social experiment that failed. All of those housing estates, all those bombed out areas of Liverpool around the docks, all those people shoved into high-rise accommodation with living and social areas below. It didn't work, and it very quickly fell into disrepair and subsequently has gone through some massive regeneration. Runcorn the centre of Runcorn sits about half a mile, 3/4 of a mile away from where the school is placed. It contains some of the most deprived housing estates in Europe. I do home visits there, and when I do home visits there, I borrow a mate's car because it's a good 15 years old and is got knocks and dents in it, and nobody in their right minds is going to try and nick it. And that sounds like I'm being judgmental, but believe me, if you visited those estates and talked to the parents, they said I was right to do that. But Sandymoor itself is a suburb of Runcorn. Sandymoor is a growing estate. The oldest house in Sandymoor itself is 15 years old. And we currently have 900 homes in Sandymoor, growing through to 2,000 homes in the next 10 years. So we are sitting in a rapidly growing, rapidly evolving community. And a community that is very much at odds with the heart of Runcorn, because part of the development plan for the local authority is to actually grow a more affluent suburban area of Runcorn to try and balance out the housing estates in the city centre. So if you come and visit us, the houses around us are lovely 3, 4 bedroom, 5 bedroom detached, semi-detached houses with 2-car driveways automatically as standard. And those are the sort of people who live right on our doorstep. But 70% of our children live within a mile of our school. Our demographic is absolutely broad ability range, broad socioeconomic range. We have children from every single spectrum from the socioeconomic measures. We have children in our school who we are in regular contact with the police about because of their welfare. I could tell you stories till the cows come home about the sort of children we've got. And I say that in context because it's really important to understand that context, because the children we are dealing with, the children we are working with, are ordinary children. They are complex young people trying to make their way in their life, and more often than not struggling with issues in their life that I do not know how they cope with sometimes. It's that sort of lifestyle that some of our children are living in, and those sort of homes our children are coming from. All of our children are. We're no different to anyone else. And so our founders were pretty unique because they're all parents. We've currently got one founder's child in school. In September, we've got 2 more joining us. And over the next few years, all of them will eventually come through the school. But they didn't do what most middle-class parents would do if they were looking for schooling for secondary school. They didn't say, oh, do you know what, I'm not so happy about the local schools around here. Let's put the house on the market and move somewhere nicer. They didn't do that. They actually put the work in, they put the effort in, and they founded the school. And they are incredibly happy of the fact that we are fully mixed, comprehensive school that their children are being part of, which is absolutely amazing. And their original vision, their founding vision, says an awful lot. This is exactly the words they wrote 2 years before we opened that got DFE approval. And there is an awful lot in there. Intelligent, intelligence. We had a long discussion when we founded the school because I was challenging on that. Because when I was appointed, I had in the back of my mind, well, what's their agenda here? Where are they going with this one? And they said, we were talking about intelligence not just in terms of academic intelligence. We don't want Sandymoor School to be an academic hothouse. We don't want to be doing that. We want to be focusing on all intelligences. And so we've built a curriculum based around that, based on recognizing and accepting all intelligences. We have reduced curriculum, reduced exams courses for students who, for instance, are incredibly outstanding athletes. I've got a young student who is potentially going to be an Olympic swimmer. You may well see her in 8 years' time, there or thereabouts. She'll be about ready for that, swimming for England. She's got a reduced timetable, purely because she has to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning and do 2 hours swimming every morning. Why can't we adapt to that person? So intelligence is a very crucial one. But actually, employable and global are really key elements. And it's employable and global and social competence, leading into the study about communication that Sanjeev was talking about. You know, those 3 key phrases are actually the heart of Sandymoor School. Because too many schools say, employable, that's a dirty word. Job, oh no, we don't want that. We want to educate children for education's sake. But actually what we want to do is actually make young people go out and be happy. We want to make young people go out and be productive. We want to make young people go out and actually be a full functioning part of society. And that does mean we've got to be making them employable. So we have to do that within a context. We have to crystal ball gaze. Yeah, some schools are 2 or 3 years ahead in some areas. Some are 2 or 3 years behind in other areas. I would say the gap's wider than that. We have to think. We have to think about the world 15 years ahead and try and prepare our children to be able to adapt and live in that environment. Whilst at the same time, an awful lot of our practices, an awful lot of the ways we do things in school are actually 20 or 30 years old. How many schools still have whiteboards on the walls with teachers standing writing with pens on them? Virtually all of them. How many schools are actually putting at the heart? It was interesting that Sanjeev was talking about parental communication more than communication with the children, more than engagement with the children. You visit most schools, and what goes on in the schools is actually pretty similar to what could have happened 20, 30 years ago. Take the whiteboard off the wall, put a blackboard back on there, give the teacher a black gown and a bit of chalk, and you've got exactly the same education experience going on. Has there really been any difference? Has there really been any change? So at Sandymoor School, we have decided that it's all about actual transformation. It is important, it is essential that we do it differently. Evolution is no longer an option in education. For us, you have to transform the experience of young people because their social life, their lives entirely are different to ours were when we were children. I'm a bit older than Sanjeev. When I was a kid, my concept of social time was actually persuading my parents to let me take the phone off the wall and pull it round the corner, pulling the cable as tight as I can, trying to shut the door to the lounge so I could phone my girlfriend without my parents listening. And I always picked the television program they liked watching most because there was less likelihood that they'd press mute to listen to what I was saying. Because, of course, back then they couldn't pause it. But they always managed to somehow find a way to press mute whenever I was trying to have a phone conversation with a girlfriend. My mum always managed to walk into the kitchen to make herself a cup of tea, just at that really awkward moment. Nowadays, they're in their bedrooms. They're on their mobile phones. We have very little idea over what they're doing and how they're communicating. And then they come to school, and they sit there and stare at us. Well, that isn't how it has to be, surely. That isn't how it should be. And so for us, we have built a whole new approach to how we interact. ICT should no longer be something that sits on the side. It cannot be something that schools say, well, if we've got the money, we'll do something about it. It has to be something that schools embed into their working practice. And that's what we've done. And it all starts with this vision. I am not an IT expert. I am not an IT person in any way, shape, or form. I am a scientist, and I love my gadgets too, particularly the nice shiny ones. But for me, the gadgets, all the gadgets in the world, will not change education unless it's used appropriately. But what I do say is that we won't change education without IT these days. And that, for me, is the crucial thing. We can see there some of our students. They are engaged in a lesson, actively using technology in their day-to-day life. Mixed mode, a combination of old school, the pen, and the tablet technology, has to be a blended part of what we do, a part of what we use. Collaboration is crucial. We are living in an environment where our young people are used to collaborating. Their social time is collaborative. I talk to my 13-year-old stepdaughter, and we say, oh, who's on your phone? And she rattles off a whole list of names, because she's on group chats all the time. She's sat in her bedroom, she's sat in our front room watching The Walking Dead with us, whilst at the same time having an ongoing conversation with a dozen of her friends. And that's her normal experience. Collaboration, social, multitasking is now the norm for young people. We have to accept that and adapt to that and actually engage with it. We have to allow them to collaborate. And when we do, we see amazing things happen. We see children engaging in work. You know, I've worked in schools where teachers banned headphones, where banned music, and yet young people love music. So why on earth ban music? You know, here we've got a couple lads getting on in an art lesson, okay? And they're doing some research. It's an art lesson, but they've got headphones in. They're sharing music. You know, the one reason why I love that photo is there's the one pair of headphones coming out of one of the surfaces, but it's being shared with two people. They are communicating. They are sharing and collaborating in the experience. And so it's really, really important that we think about actually changing education to match in with how young people work. We were lucky. We are lucky. It is about the fact that we were able to start with a completely blank sheet of paper. I consider myself the absolutely luckiest man alive, because I do a job that didn't exist 3.5 years ago. You know, I was able to actually build this school from the ground up with people around me, and we have written everything from the bottom up. We started with a blank sheet of paper, and I know that colleagues of mine who are heads in other schools struggle with that because they want to make change, but what do you do about your year 11s who've got their exams in a few months' time? They want to make change, but how do you cope with all the kids currently in the school? We're not a factory. We're not Ford Motor Company. We can't suddenly shut the factory down, send them all away, and then bring them back a week later to a completely new factory line. We have to change that. But what the blank sheet of paper gave us was the ability to start thinking differently. If you come and visit our school, and there is an open invitation for anyone to come and visit us, you will see that actually it looks and feels remarkably similar to any other school in the country. So actually we're saying what we can do can be done anywhere. What we are doing can be replicated. It just takes some different thinking. For us, infrastructure is crucial. We had to think very carefully about what our school was capable of, what the building itself was capable of, and we have invested heavily in infrastructure. We have got sorry Sanj, we have got 100 meg fibre line straight to the building. But we had to get that in place because where the school is built, there was no infrastructure. We had to pay BT to lay 2.5 kilometres of fibre line straight to our school. So we have got that. But one of the reasons why it was important to us was because everything we do is in the cloud. Everything we do is in the cloud. If you're a particular geeky, techie person and visit our school and look at our server room, we've got an entirely empty rack because we're not using all of the storage space that was predicted we would use because we'd have virtually no storage space on site. All of our storage space are switches, hubs, control units, and then virtual machines running on a Blade server. Everything else is up there in the cloud. And so for us, it's absolutely essential that we have that full-on connection to the internet. But infrastructure is more than that. There's other hidden things as well. And actually, again, this has already been mentioned. I have spoken to an awful lot of people, an awful lot of heads in my time, in my teaching career. I've been doing 25 years in education now. And throughout that time, I've seen a shift. And people are now talking about how one-to-one is the golden thing we're aiming for with technology. And to be fair, Civica, when we first engaged them to help us build the ICT vision, was saying, well, what you want to aspire for is one-to-one. And I said, no, it's not. I said, that's a load of rubbish. How many mobile phones do you have on you? You know, I've got my personal mobile phone that I've got my slides on. I've got my work phone. I've got my Surface Pro, etc. You know, we all have 3 or 4 devices on us that we expect to connect at any time. And I think one of the major things in young people's life nowadays is that perma-connect, that instant online, that always online technology. So for us, Wi-Fi infrastructure was crucial. We have got Wi-Fi infrastructure throughout the whole building. We have got, it's some sort of follow me. So wherever you walk around the building, you never drop your signal. It always picks you up. It always carries you through. We have a dedicated Wi-Fi network just for student devices, so that there's no need for them to go through any complicated processes of taking their device to an IT manager to check that it's okay before they're allowed it on the network. Because you don't do that in the Trafford Centre or Meadowhall. You go to Meadowhall, you log onto a website, you type in your email address, and bam, you're on the Meadowhall's Wi-Fi network, free. So why shouldn't that be the case in school? So we do it. And we do it because we want the young people to use their devices. We want to make sure that they are engaging with us on our journey. And it's really important that we have the capacity so that we will never get any of those hiccups. And it may well be that it's only a very few points in the day where we're tipping over 10 meg on our data streaming through our internet connection. But it's important that when that happens, it doesn't fall over. It's important that the students and the staff are always experiencing it working properly. But most importantly of all, it's not about following trends. I would love to fill my school with bright, shiny gadgets. I would love to. But actually, for me, it's not about that. It's about what are going to be the outcomes for my young people. How can we help them be better? How can they do it? And how can they do it with their devices? And bottom line is that's ultimately why we went with Office 365 and the Microsoft environment, because it is entirely device agnostic. You can access Office 365 on a Mac. You can access it on a Windows device. I've got it here running on my iPhone. And we have students in school that have every type of device possible. But because we use Office 365, I have students in my science lesson videoing an experiment on their Android phone and uploading it to their class book, their OneNote class book. So it's there for them to share. I have students making notes with their mobile phone in a lesson because they've got access to Office 365. And that's the really crucial thing. It's about engaging with the young people in their journey. What's been interesting for us is that we started off with some resistance from students. We started off with resistance from students for a couple of reasons. First of all, because we were suddenly making them do more work. I've always said that actually we need to start pushing it such that the students do more work than the teachers. And frequently you don't see that. At my last school, which was quite a high-attaining academic school, when it came time to revision, teachers were setting mock papers on a weekly basis for classes. And I was saying to this teacher, well, hang on a second, you're setting a mock paper once a week. So those kids are doing a 40-minute, 45-minute, hour-long exam at home and then giving you the paper. You're then marking 25 of them on a weekly basis. Who's working harder there? And suddenly they realized they were working harder. And so we switched it, and we actually ended up giving the kids the mark schemes and making them mark it. But young people don't like it. Young people like being recipients. You do actually have to push them, because they are inherently lazy. They are inherently lazy. You do have to push them to make them work. But you have to do it in such a way that they go with you. And so using their technology was huge for us. Allowing them to use their technology. Not having any barriers to them bringing their technology on. Because if you offer free, unlimited, super fast internet, Wi-Fi for their mobile phones, I don't know a single teenager that won't say, oh, yes, please. Because they'll all be on tight data packages because their parents can't afford that. So they'll all want that. You then put in rules and boundaries to make sure that they don't access social media in inappropriate times. And yes, I've had teachers come to me to say, oh, all this mobile phone stuff, well, that student's got their mobile phone out in the class. You know, how do I know what they're doing with it? And I do come back to an age-old anecdote, which is, well, when I was at school, I was always renowned for writing really rather odd notes and passing them to people. Does that mean to say we should ban a pencil? Because you're not quite sure what you're going to do with a pencil? You have to actually learn behavior management. Controlling student technology in the classroom is not about technology, it's just about behavior management and classroom control. And in an interesting way, if you actually make the classroom more collaborative, it's easier to manage. Because if you've got children in cluster tables, then you're walking around as the teacher, as the educator, you're seeing what they're doing more easily. And so we have got more growing acceptance. And a crucial part of that has been about bringing their own devices. But it's interesting about this communication thing, because it's not just about that, it's also about engaging in their technology. And social media is quite clearly their domain. They are the experts in social media by a long mile on that one. But one of the products in Office 365 is Yammer. Now, Yammer is a small social media startup that was bought up by Microsoft, is now part of the Office 365 suite. We have got Yammer running as a social media stream in our school. All our young people and all our staff are on Yammer. It looks remarkably like Facebook when you log onto it and see it. And the great thing about it was we launched it without any big fanfare. We made no noise that it was going to happen. We literally just turned it on, and 2 days later, 3/4 of the school had signed up for it. The kids were making their own groups. Half of them were actually subject and learning related. Teachers had started engaging with that one. Suddenly we have discussion groups about homework. We have the students. Students have created their own online study group communities to help each other with homework because it's their technology. And because it's in Yammer, because it's part of the Microsoft network, it's part of this whole ecosystem, they're all talking to each other, and they're all bringing documents in, and they're all file sharing, and it is all actually an incredibly exciting, vibrant place. We're about to be rolling out a Yammer link to one of our partner schools in Spain, where we're going to hopefully start doing some collaboration in an online environment with our Spanish school with second language lessons and things like that going on. The teachers, interestingly, exactly the same issues. Resistant to change. I think, in my experience, teachers are probably the most resistant profession to change in the world. You really do have to bring them on board slowly and carefully. But they're getting there. Our strapline with the whole Office 365 environment is about helping them work smarter, not harder. And we're making that work, and it's happening, and they're getting there. Completely new ways of working. One thing that's revolutionized things for us, one thing that probably is one of the key component parts that led to us getting the Microsoft Showcase status, is our use of OneNote. OneNote is the hidden gem in the Office suite, because we now use OneNote for all our internal meeting spaces. All our internal meetings are now conducted via OneNote. But more excitingly, every single one of our subjects, all of our teachers, have what's called a OneNote classbook shared with their students. Now, with OneNote classbook, you have a combination of online resource, textbook and student exercise book all in one place, all online. I have got my head of English doing English literature lessons by putting passages of text with then students digital inking on the screen over the text to understand and unpick the meaning. I've got a humanities teacher who marks essays by leaving voice recordings. And I'll just pause on that one. By leaving voice recordings tagged to sentences in the student's work that's been entered in OneNote. The feedback for that is awesome. For the student to be able to actually listen to the teacher say what they feel about a student's piece of work rather than try and read a few short bullet points really does take marking and feedback onto a whole new level. Really, really essential, transformational task there. And the students love it. And the students love it because they can also have OneNote on their phone, on their tablet, on their iPad. The parents love it because suddenly they're seeing their kids at home with an iPad, and yes, they're multitasking. They're flicking back and forth between YouTube and Facebook and instant messaging and group chats and that sort of stuff, but they're also flipping into OneNote. See if the teacher's added anything new. They're also popping into Yammer. What do we need to do for that geography homework next week? I'm stuck on question 5 in science. How do we do that? Happening in an online social environment. And the teachers have been scared about it because it does take the power away from them. You know, it's an old phrase, sage on the stage or guide on the side. We really are moving much more towards the guiding environment of education. But we're getting there, and it's an amazing journey, and we really are working hard with that one. Crucially, though, it's about keeping it simple. It's about saying, what are we doing about that? Well, this is what we're about, this is what we're doing. And of course, the skills that we're developing in the young people are skills that all of us use in our workplace environment. We all have to engage in collaborative online spaces. What I haven't touched on is the fact that we don't even have a homework diary or student planner anymore. That's also all electronic and digital. Teachers set homework to our students by sending them calendar invites. Because why wouldn't you? And thinking about push notifications, if I put a reminder the day before it's due when I send that calendar invite out, a child gets a beep on their phone to say, oh, by the way, you've got geography homework due tomorrow. An amazing way of using new technology to do it the way we always do. And we are having an amazing, fantastic journey. I think that's probably the first time I've actually finished at time, Nicola. Thank you very much.